Good evening, and thank you for joining us for the 21st season of the Jewish Film Festival of Fairfield County. My name is Nancy Schiffman, and I'm the Director of Arts and Culture at the Stamford Jewish Community Center. The Jewish Film Festival of Fairfield County has a 21-year history of bringing current, award-winning films to the Fairfield and Westchester County communities. And we are fortunate to be following a hybrid model again this year, where folks who are comfortable can join us for in-person screenings, to gather together as a community. And for those who prefer to watch in the comfort of their own home, they can enjoy award-winning films as well. In fact, being virtual means anyone from anywhere can view our festival films. So if you know of someone who might be interested, please direct them to our website, www.stamfordjcc.org. I'd like to thank all of our sponsors, both individuals and organizations, whose generosity makes this festival possible. Although we're not at the State or Garden Cinemas any longer, we'd like to thank the Friedman family and Garden Homes Management for their continued support and dedication to the Jewish Film Festival of Fairfield County since its inception. A special thank you to AJC Westchester Fairfield for their sponsorship of our festival. This week's film, Persian Lessons, is in partnership with the Jewish Historical Society of Fairfield County. The Jewish Film Festival and the JCC have a long-standing, important relationship with the Jewish Historical Society, and we value the work that they do and the strong partnership that we have built. I want to especially thank Marcy Schoenfeld, who has played a key leadership role in both the Jewish Historical Society and as a Jewish Film Festival committee member for over a decade, and to whom I am deeply, deeply grateful. We'd also like to thank Peter Lilienthal, the president of the Jewish Historical Society of Fairfield County, who I invite to say a few words.
Well, Nancy, thank you so much. What a nice introduction. And we are so honored to, in fact, have been a sponsor now for 12 years. And the kinds of movies and films that you've shown have been just spectacular. And the conversations we've all had amongst ourselves has gone for on and on and on. But this is also a special year for us in that we're going to be celebrating our 40th year. And there'll be some events this year that we'll be having, and hopefully the community will participate with us. Again, thank you very much, Nancy. The film was fantastic. I did see it the other day. And thank you so much, and all the very best and continued success. Take care, everybody.
Thanks so much, Peter. That's wonderful. Such a great partnership we have. I'd also like to thank our festival co-chairs, Jennifer Kaufman, Debbie Lee, and Lisa Popper, along with our tremendously dedicated festival committee members who work endlessly year-round, screening hundreds of films and are tasked with selecting the very best. It's a true honor to have with us today Vadim Perelman, director of the film Persian Lessons. This film was one of the favorite films of the committee, as well as my own personal favorite, and a clear choice to be included in the festival. Vadim Perelman is a Ukrainian-Canadian-American film director. He started his successful career as a commercial director, directing multinational television commercials for Microsoft, General Motors, Panasonic, Nike, Airwalk, AT&T, Sony PlayStation, Coors, and MasterCard, and music videos, including Kelly Clarkson's Because of You. Vadim made his feature film directorial debut in 2003 with House of Sand and Fog, which was nominated for 3 Academy Awards. His second feature film, The Life Before Her Eyes, was shot right here in 2006 in Connecticut, and then followed by Yoki 5 in 2016, By Me in 2018, and most recently, Persian Lessons in 2020. It's my absolute honor and pleasure to welcome Vadim Perelman. Thank you for joining us, Vadim.
Thank you.
To lead us in discussion of Vadim's film, we welcome Beverly Stein, a longtime leader of our Jewish community. It's such a pleasure to have both of you with us here today. I'm so excited to hear what you have to say, Vadim, about this amazing film. Really, it was one of my favorites. It's so incredibly riveting and suspenseful as you watch it. And I found, and I know everyone else, and I'm sorry, this is a bit of a spoiler, the ending is so clever, and so satisfying. And so, although if those of you are out there that haven't seen it yet, you still should see it, even though you might hear a little bit about the ending, which again,
Yeah.
I thought was so clever, so incredibly clever. Oh, wonderful. And if
So
folks haven't,
I'm not going to censor the ending then. Okay, I can talk
no,
about it.
you should talk about
Okay.
it. I think we want to
Okay.
know a little bit more about it. And so, yes, I say go for it. And I'm sure they'll
Okay.
still enjoy the film just as much. It's also a little bit of a teaser, so it's great. And the film, by the way, is available. If you haven't seen it yet, or you know someone who would want to see it, it's available at www.stanfordjcc.org. And we'd love for people to register right after this Q&A. That would be wonderful. And so really with that, I don't want to delay any of this conversation. I can't wait to hear what is going to be said. So I turn the floor over to you, Beverly. Thank you both.
Thank you, Nancy, and thank you, Peter, and thank you to everybody out there who joined us tonight. I know you can see us, but we can't see you. And Vadim, welcome. It is such a pleasure to have this opportunity to talk to you. As I mentioned earlier, the Persian Lessons left me shaking. It really touched me very deep down. I thought that the music, the film, the storyline, the pacing of it in particular was absolutely spectacular. And that's an odd thing I know to say about a Holocaust film, and yet it really was. It was eerie. So my first question to you is, how did you find this story? How did it come to you?
Well, a man who lives in Berlin, he's an emigre from Russia. I think he's like in his late 60s. He has read this. It was a short story written in Eastern Germany during communist times. It was written in 1952. And by a man named Wolfgang Kohlhauser, who's still alive, who went to the Berlin premiere of the festival.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So anyway, the core concept came from that short story, but the story is really it's not as developed as the film. It's just kind of he teaches Farsi to a couple, not to an officer, but to a couple, and therefore that's how he eats, basically, and that's how he survives. So there is no conceit of having names and any of that.
So is this a true story that the short story is based on?
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows. So
No, and Wolfgang won't answer it. I suspect that it's not, but it's not so far-fetched that these things have gone on. You know, because even stranger things have gone on in the camps. Yeah.
That's true. And so it was written in German?
Yeah, it was written in German. Then the script was written in Russian, and then I translated it to English for me, which was a really good exercise for me. And so, but the language they had to speak was German, so it had to be translated back to German. And Russian. I had to have Russian versions because the crew was Russian, and so Belarus. So they had to like know what they're doing, and so it was a Tower of Babel.
Sounds like it.
With the languages. You know, we had Italian actors, French actors, and our great actor Noel, who played Reza, who played Gilles. He didn't know German, and he had to speak German with a French accent.
Did he learn German to speak?
He spoke phonetically. He would memorize what it sounds like, and he spoke it. Apparently, I'm not really strong in German, but apparently it was a great success. Like, he did really well. And what's interesting is that they both begged me not to change the words because that's what he learns. Like, I couldn't suddenly go, it can be great if he said, So it was impossible. So everything had to be the night before the script went, the lines for the day went to Berlin, translated there, went back to us, and then he memorized it till like late at night with the help of Lars Eidinger, who played, the call. And so it was really interesting. So on the
Wait a minute.
screen, the screen, the little guy was teaching him how to speak Farsi, but off the screen, the actor who played the German officer was teaching
Him how to
Noel
play
how
German.
to speak German. Yeah.
And it was filmed in Belarus, where everyone speaks Russian.
Yes.
Why was it filmed in Belarus?
For location purposes, for money. It was budget. It helped a lot.
Was there
We could make our dollar, stretch our dollar much further there.
further? And
Yeah.
you created a concentration camp there, or there was
Yeah.
a location?
We
that
built
you used?
the big building that you saw was there,
Mhm.
but it was completely dilapidated. Like there was nothing in the windows, just no floors inside and all that. And it has a crazy history. It used to be a Gestapo jail during the war, because that was occupied territory. And then it was an NKVD jail. So it had like really bad, like cold vibes, like around this place. And so there was that, open rectangle of a building. And in the middle, in the Platz area, we built our kitchen. That was built. Offices, restaurant, all that stuff. That was all built there.
So you had the structure, and then you added.
The structure, and in the structure, we added a floor at great expense, added a floor and made the barracks in there, in that structure where that, window was, arched window.
So what kind of research did you do to come up with the kitchen and the cafe and things to make it feel so real?
Archive photos.
Yeah.
Archive photos. What I tried specifically not to do was to emulate any of the films that were made on that subject.
Mhm.
Because they'll be like broken telephone. They might have made mistakes and things like that. So I just went from archive photos. And there's actually plenty, with a lot of the worked in the kitchens. With those big pots, they had to be a certain kind of pot, and the way they kept the food, and it's all, yeah.
The way they move the pots. I mean, you could feel the pain as he was
Yeah.
moving the pot from place to place and
Yeah,
stirring
yeah.
it. So I'm going to go back a second to what drew you then to this short story to make it into a film.
Well, I came to it when it was already a script
Ah.
written, yeah, and I had a lot to do with the script after that, but it was already written as a script. And what drew me to it was just, I don't know, what drew you to it. It's the same thing. I'm Jewish. The subject is very, very important and dear to me. And I always wanted to tell that story, a story with the background of the Holocaust.
Did you have any thoughts that maybe one more movie about the Holocaust was one too many, or that people wouldn't be interested?
No, I was my theory, and it's nothing new, is that the more we talk about it, the better. And then the less chance that that A, it will be forgotten, and B, that it will not happen again.
And as you
That's
work,
important.
yeah, I mean, it's critical that the story gets out there, and this tells it, I think, from a very different perspective, because
Mhm.
how did the character Risa, how did he cope with not making like bizarre faces when the German was saying the things he was saying, and how did he kind of keep a sense of the victim without seeming like he was over the top? I mean, that had to be incredibly tough role to play and for you to write.
Yes, it was a, to write, you just write the way he feels, but it was to direct, it was very tough to modulate. The thing that we had, we really kept an eye on, me and the actors, especially Noel, who played Gilles, is I watched his level of fear and how much he showed of it. He couldn't, he needed to show it to the audience,
Right.
right? So he's not some brazen idiot who doesn't understand the ramifications of what's happening, right? He needed to show the fear to the audience, but not to Koch, who's sitting right across from him. It was very not easy.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, we took advantage of the moments when Koch turned away on screen, and then he would I would almost it was almost like a conducting thing.
you could raise your hand and say,
Yeah, I'd raise my hand,
expression now.
yeah. It's mostly in the eyes. It's not even a facial expression.
Expression. Was he, I mean, learning the language the night before, modulating his fear, making sure it came through and not showing it, was he personally completely exhausted
His
at the end
guilt,
of every day?
his guilt too, not just the fear.
His guilt, right.
Yeah, and so yeah, it was very tough on everybody. The shoot was awful. It was in the winter. It was cold. It was colder in those buildings than it was outside. We had those propane heaters heating up the kitchen because it was just, it was a set. And then they had to be turned off for every take, then turned on again. They just get cold because it's not insulated. They just built, the way you build sets is you don't insulate them because you don't
Right.
live in them. So you just hope that they stand for the rest of the shoot. And so yeah, it was pretty brutal. And the food and the constant dark, and those German shepherds wailing and barking nonstop, which was good. It didn't screw up our sounds or anything like that, because I wanted that atmosphere for everything. But it's it was just I felt like I was in a camp. I don't know if I could imagine that.
Yeah.
It really did. I lost a lot of weight, and it was not easy. Not an easy shoot for everybody.
The German shepherds gave that eerie feeling that at any moment they could jump.
I think it's in our DNA somewhere. It's some kind of a collective memory thing. I can't look at a German shepherd. It freaks me out.
To give you the thing. So how did you find the actors? Because they fit the part so perfectly, I thought.
Well, Lars is probably one of the most preeminent German actors. He plays Hamlet. Showed in the theater in Berlin. There's a month-long waiting list to come and see him. So that was easy. I just picked the best actor. And Noel, we found he's an Argentinian. He's from Argentina. And he lives in Paris and speaks French, and Spanish is his language. And he was just perfect. Perfect.
Do you speak French?
No.
So how did the two of you communicate?
Oh, he spoke English too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He speaks really good English. Yeah, it was very, very cool. That was a lot of communication going on between me and him mostly. Lars was on autopilot. He was amazing. He didn't need much guidance.
You felt he fit right into the part.
Yeah, it was made for him. Yeah. Even though he never played the Nazi before that. And I said, hey, I am the person that saw the Nazi in you.
But you also gave him a human side. And what was the thinking behind making him human? Because as they were talking, especially towards the end, you got this sense of the man behind the devil.
Well, the language, this fake language, definitely allowed him to open up. Allowed him to say things that he would not in German. That he wouldn't dare say in German, like personal things. And it humanized him quite a bit. And he wasn't an evil person, really, if you think about it as a human being. But what he did was pretty, as Gilles said, you just feed the murderers. What's the difference, really? And so and that was a big thing for me, actually. was one of my big fears. It's funny that you should ask that. With this whole film was how sympathetic do I make it? Because how do I give the SS a little bit of slack? You know what I mean? As human beings,
that's
it's
a daring,
very dangerous,
daring
it's a very
task.
dangerous thing to do. Yeah, exactly. And nobody's done it. In all the Holocaust films, all the Germans are just like robots.
Right.
They're very flat. They scream, they shoot, they burn you with cigarettes. They're very kind of one-dimensional, and they're just like killing machines. And so in a way that almost excuses them, I think in retrospect, because portraying them that way, it says, well, it's a scorpion, of course it's going to sting you. It's that same kind of mentality. Whereas what's terrifying is they were human beings with emotions,
Right.
human beings that loved, human beings that were jealous, human beings that had office politics, as I show a little bit, human beings that, and which makes it absolutely terrifying, because then we see ourselves doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And then we condemn them more, because it's human being doing that. It's not some, like half-brained person that's right. Like, that's all he does, like you can't blame a pit bull for being aggressive, it's that kind of thing.
That's
but if it's a poodle, then you go, holy cow, that dog is messed up, So anyway, that's kind of what, that was a big fear. And I think that with that justification, and showing him, showing that little bit of human, and showing it to the point where you almost feel sorry for the guy at the end in the airport. You go, oh my God, the poor fucking, even though he's a Hauptsturmführer SS.
And he's trying to escape
from a camp. And here we get a little tear in our eye for him.
Yeah. You
And
also feel that
he saved his life. He did. So
he did something. He did something positive in this story. Yeah. But you also feel a sense of human with the relationship with the in the kitchen with the couple that's dating and the jealousy between the two women.
Yeah.
But
that's just it's another attempt to humanize him, just make it a little bit more. There was a whole sideline in the script with the commandant too. We had some going on with like a prisoner woman, which I hated because that's cliche.
Right.
To me. Yeah, even though it might have been true, it's still cliche. And so I cut all that out. The commandant, just a couple of scenes.
Yeah, that. So Farsi
good scenes.
Language was center to this movie. I mean, the fact that the script is written in one language and it's translated, and you've got two different people speaking all these different languages working on it, but also in the movie itself, this made-up language of Farsi is a very central part of the movie. How did you go about making up this language? What made you think to use names?
There was a philology expert at Moscow State University, a very learned man. I gave him like the gift of his life. Usually they study existing languages or dead languages. And here you imagine saying to a philologist, make up your own language. It's like he was like, oh my God, really? I go, yeah, awesome. And I gave him the parameters. I said I wanted to sound a little like vaguely like Middle Eastern, And then I also it has to be based on this list of names. And I gave him the names, and I have like a 600-word dictionary that actually, I have that we manufactured with like, prepositions, all the endings, prefixes, suffixes. But the names were, and here's where I wanted to be authentic. The names were actual Holocaust, actual Auschwitz victims. That list was actually of the actual people.
What made you decide to use real names in order to develop the language? What was your thinking there? Because the
Well,
ending scene
the
is,
general conceit of the purpose of what he did,
uh-huh,
because by doing that, he built a monument to those people that would have been just gone in the ashes, in the camp and in that fireplace. So yeah, and he made them live forever by remembering their names.
it took a while to realize, for me anyway, to realize that the words that he was teaching them were from the names. It was at one point when he was doing intake, and he would say the name and then he would attach it to the spoon or the fork or whatever item it was. And I went, oh my goodness, he's keeping a list of the people in his head by creating this language.
When he was sitting at the desk,
Right.
and he had to translate 40 words that the guy gave him after he came back to the camp after escaping. He decided to go back, and he just had his ruler just fall vertically and cover up half the name. And he said, well, here's the words, and that way I'll remember the words. And at first it was like a little cheat sheet. It's what he said to that gendarme in the forest. He said, I can sure make them up, but remembering them all is impossible.
Well, yeah.
He needed some sort of mnemonic, to memorize.
It was an excellent mnemonic. Speaking of the gendarme in the forest, what role did you see that playing in the film?
That guy in the forest?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. God. In a weird way, drunken God. That basically told him that he had to do it. Some sort of not even a god, but like a guide. Like Virgil. In the boat. It's because he was just drunk. He was, and he wasn't super wise, but he did a wise thing by telling him to go back and learn.
And learn and take notes in his head.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. What do you?
And also saved his life, because he would have gotten blown up. For sure.
Oh yeah,
in the minefield. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He wouldn't have survived. What if I'm asking, if someone would ask you, if I were to ask you, besides language, what would you say some of the major themes were in the movie?
Guilt, survivor guilt, and how it how it affected the survivors. Even if they didn't do anything, shameful to survive, which a lot of them did. They had to, embarrassing and shameful and all that, or just devastating, like being one of those people that cleaned out the ovens, so on.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way they survived in the camps.
In the camps.
In the death camps. So guilt, guilt, and how and why it exists. And also the message, what I said earlier, is that we're all humans and we're all capable of it. So that's what scares me, is that if we think Jews are not capable of it, I think we are, given the right circumstances and the right things. We're just people, just like any others.
That's a frightening thought. Thanks
a
lot.
Yeah. And I mean, it's too the Stanford experiment,
right?
The what's the other one? It was anyway, I'll remember it.
So this movie came out 2 years ago, and as you said that it opened in Berlin. How was it?
Yeah, it played all over the world.
How did Berlin in particular, the world in general, how was it received?
Great. The emotion and laughter. A lot of laughter. A lot more laughter than I expected. Put it that way.
More laughter in Germany than in other places, or kind of the same?
No, maybe it was in Germany even more, and I'll tell you why. Because they were nervous. I think the Germans in the audience. There was a lot of it was like nervous laughter. A lot of it was just a little bit. They overemphasized it, and possibly they saw nuances in the dialogue that didn't translate in my head, because I had to direct the thing not knowing German.
Right.
So they might have, it's the inflections and the nuances. I don't know. And Germans are like not necessarily a very comedic people. They're not, so I think they just find things funny that Jews or Black people would not find funny. So it's kind of one of those things.
We all have our own sense of humor. It's very cultural.
Yeah, but I was shocked. Like I was actually afraid. They go, "What the hell? Why are they all laughing?" And then somebody, and I think it was a film critic, said, "Oh yeah, I was at the screening. They were just nervous." He said, it's always. I mean, think about it. It's portraying your grandfather, and so on.
Right. I heard that it played to a standing ovation in Berlin.
Yeah, it was 10 minutes then.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did that? How did you feel?
It was at the Grand. It was at the Grand Palace and all that.
Uh-huh.
Big premiere. How did I feel about that? I hated it. How do you think I felt about that?
Hey, were you surprised?
I go, shut up, all of you.
Back?
No, it was good. It felt definitely gratified.
And,
sure.
and you found the same
after the hard work.
The same reaction all over the world, that people received well and that people found it meaningful. Are you there? Did I freeze or did you freeze? Nancy?
Yes, I think that Vadim froze, so let's give him a second.
Okay.
Hopefully his connection will be back and better. This has been a wonderful conversation thus far. I'd hate for it to end here.
Well, hopefully,
There he
he's
is.
back.
Wonderful.
Okay, good. All right. You have to unmute them.
Yeah, I said, sorry, something happened with the internet.
No, that's
it's all better now.
good. I was like, was it me? Did I say something?
Yes.
Anyway.
It was about the standing ovation. You really offended me.
I offended you. I do apologize. So the photography I found absolutely spectacular. It was dark almost all the time. Sometimes I wonder if it's my TV or if it's
earth tones. Yeah.
Earth tones. And why did you choose to, up until the ending scene, why did you choose to stay in those kinds of tones? What was your...
Because black and white would be cliche also, and it definitely wasn't like a happy place. So yeah, it had to be subdued. And notice that there was not a single swastika in the picture.
I did. I noticed.
Isn't that interesting? And you know why? Because it's like Spielberg and people like the Schindler's List, swastikas hanging flags all over the place. They didn't do that. They didn't have swastikas. They tried to keep those things very parallel. Their country, the Reich, which swastika represented, and the death camps. They were very much secret.
They didn't
so
mess
they didn't advertise their presence in those camps. That's why I think it's silly. A lot of things that I see in Holocaust movies, to me, this is why I wanted to make it very authentic. And I didn't do a death camp. Even I did a transit camp, but even there was, especially in transit camps, there was nothing. They didn't want them to know where they were going.
Right. And the violence and the fear in transit camps was, I don't want to say equal, but it was intense. I mean, you knew.
It was more so, I'll tell you why, because you had no idea where you were going. And sometimes you still had hope that, well, maybe they're just relocating us. Like those, remember the rumors in the barracks?
Yeah.
That scene when they're talking to each other. Yeah. So it was scarier because you have no idea what's happening.
What's happening and what's next.
Yeah, it's just as scary as it was in that truck at the beginning.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and that he found the book. I mean, he sold his sandwich for the book, and that ended up saving his life. I mean, I think a lot of lives were saved by just, I don't want to say a fluke, but basically a fluke of something that happened. Was that part wasn't in the story either. You added that to the script of the
Which,
book?
no, there was nothing in the story.
Nothing in the story.
Nothing in
Got
the
it.
story. If you read the story, it's actually not very good.
Just have-
It's yeah, it was just like a little sketch, of one of the things that might have happened in the camp.
The music was also, I thought, very effective. It was subtle,
Mhm.
it eerie, and yet it kind of brought you along with the story. Did you had it written for the film, for the movie?
Yeah, of course.
And what was your directions to the musicians?
Well, again, I didn't want the cliches. I'm going to say that like a broken record. I didn't want
Okay,
that
you can keep saying it.
sobby violin. I saved it only for the credits. It's called Klezmer. That track that he wrote on purpose. He played the violin with the wooden part,
Right.
not with
With
the horse here. Played it with the wooden part. He played the violin, and he purposely amazingly talented composers. It's two brothers in Paris. Really good.
They're good. So you've got.
Yeah, and I wanted fairly modern, kind of almost abstract music. That I didn't want the tearjerker.
Tearjerker or heavy Jewish or heavy German.
Yeah. Again, I'm going to say Schindler's List.
Right.
For that one. I mean, Schindler's List did a lot of things terribly, and but it was a great film. But, in retrospect, you think about a lot of, but it didn't matter.
It's
all
Schindler's
about the
List.
message.
Yeah. It stays with you, just as I think the Persian Lessons stay with you. Persian Lessons. So I'm going to move to questions about the ending, but I want to remind the audience.
Why don't we let the audience ask? I mean,
I have one question in the audience. I have one.
You have one question. Okay.
But I'm just going to remind the audience to put your questions in. And before I go to my other questions, Gail would like to know, how long did it take you to make the film?
How long did it take me?
Yeah.
You mean from like starting working on it or actual filming?
Let's say filming. Filming
was exactly 38 days.
Exactly 38 days.
38 shooting days with some, some holidays in between. Still. And it was at this time of the year. I was filming cold snow.
It's cold, yeah.
It was really cold.
So from the time you read the short story to the time you started to film, how long did that take?
I read the short story when we were prepping for the filming. The short story was a surprise to us. It's because the screenwriter didn't use it. When he was young, it kind of resonated with him. He read something, that short story, and as I said, it was just a sketch. And so he, from that memory and forgetting that he might have even read it, might have heard it or whatever, he just wrote a script. And then we realized it's actually based on something. And that's when I read the short story. I really didn't take anything from the short story. But before that, the film had a really tough time getting made, because it got independent. It was independently financed, private money, not a big budget.
Not a big budget. So
no, probably less than probably about 3% of the budget of Schindler's List.
I knew you were going to compare it to Schindler's List, and probably.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's true.
Impactful.
Well, I don't know. Let's not say that, because I do like Schindler's List, but they had a ton of money. Studio, Spielberg. We had I'd say 3%, if that.
Wow. We have another question from Anonymous. Okay, what is your next project? If you can answer that, and then we'll go back to this current one. Are you working
Well,
on
I have
something currently?
4 or 5 things that I'm spinning.
Just
Spinning plates. Yeah. One of them is actually kind of fun. It's about Ponzi, the Ponzi.
right.
Yeah, and his scheme. He was an Italian immigrant to America, and he was, you know, he wasn't really a shyster. What's interesting about him, he was just a guy he was like an idiot that had a foolproof plan to make money, got a bunch of investors, and then realized that the foolproof plan was very much foolish, and it didn't work at all. And so
Nancy would like to know how, nope, it went away. Hold on.
how much did I change the script?
You got it. Yeah. Once you read it.
Oh, a lot.
Yeah.
The script didn't have the ending. Yeah, it wasn't, and I think the ending was absolutely super important. It was the only kind of ending it could have, is that it was all not for nothing.
Right.
See, if this was just a story of survival of one clever Jew, you know, who fooled them all and, you know, survived that way, guilt, not guilt, doesn't matter. It wouldn't resonate as much as making a monument to all those dead in remembering their names and immortalizing them through his own survival. They would have vanished, you know, vanished completely, those people.
But there was a scene where Kosh was looking at the book with the list of the names, and I felt like, and I know you've been asked this before, that there could have been a turning point where he realized that the words that he thought were Farsi were people's names. And did you ever think of going down that road in terms of?
No, because I would have. Yeah, I mean, there was a scene actually where right after the woods, when he takes him from the column, brings him back to the camp.
Right.
He sits him down at his desk now, and says, right. All those people that were leaving, and we need to document all that. And he says, I'm not going to do it. And he says, why not? Well, he goes, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it for you. I'm not going to do it for Germans. I'm not going to do it for anyone. I'm done. He says, you've been eating what I've been cooking for like 3 years. You know, Mr. Koch, Mr. Chef. You know, and the guy, he stops him and goes, don't, not another word. And that's, you know, so there's that feeling. But then if he knew or suspected it, even the scene in Tehran wouldn't work at the airport at all. And I really love that. And I really love that scene, kind of his comeuppance, right? Yeah. Because then what does he do? He escapes. What does he do? Right?
Yeah. Right.
No, he had to be punished for his participation in it.
What did you find the hardest part of the movie to film?
Everything.
Everything?
Every shot is hard to film. Yeah, every shot comes with blood.
Do you find that in all your films or in this particular one?
All my films. Well, the important films, yeah. There's a couple films where I didn't really care that much. It's 2 Russian films, but no, it's important. I'm such a control freak that it's all hard. And I make it hard for others too when I'm filming. Yeah.
So I want to remind the audience, if you have some questions, to put it in the Q&A, because we'd like to hear from you, not just from me.
How come when I press on Q&A, nothing comes up?
Yeah, I have two. The two questions were there that I read. So I've heard you use a description that the story is like a fable. Why do you refer to it as a fable?
Because it's a fantastical kind of luck, if you think about it. And that usually happens in fables, but it actually usually happens in life too. So, but it is like a fable. It's like if you were telling, there was a story of a young man, who, you could almost tell it that way. It had like a classical fable kind of structure.
And then what would you say the moral was? Because most fables have, no?
I already said about the morals.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nothing you want to add to that.
No, my moral. What kind of moral can you do with this? It's the most obvious moral of all, which is Holocaust was really bad.
Well, and also I think we talked about the fact that any human in the right circumstance could
have done
be
that.
in the
Yeah.
same situation. And I mean, I
Yeah.
wouldn't know if I'd call that a moral, but I think that's a very important lesson
Agreed.
that gets drawn
Yeah.
from the movie.
I agree. Yep.
And, you
That's the other message. Yeah.
know, message. Okay, I'm hitting Q&As. Oh, somebody made the comment, 9 lives of a cat. I'm not sure what they're referring to.
It's what he said to him at the gates. And he said,
Oh,
the Persian cat, but 9 lives.
lives, you're right. You're right.
Mhm.
I did forget. I did. That is true. I
And
forgot
then
it.
he said, what if I shoot you right now? Right.
Yeah.
And he said,
Well-
go ahead.
What another question is, whoops, I've made it too big. All right. What was the role of the mute brother and why did Riza relate so strongly to the brothers?
He didn't relate strongly to the brothers at all. I think that he just felt that mute brother was a guy that could never teach anybody a language, to survive. Do you know what I mean? Apart from all his other weaknesses. So he felt a certain pity towards him, I guess. And then he also heard that, they promised his mom that he would keep him alive, his older brother. And he overheard that. It was said to him, And so he felt, and he represented like all these Jews that he had absolutely no power or no strength to save, while it was all happening. Those trains going off to Poland. The camp was in eastern France, like on the border of France and Germany, Alsatian Mountains. It's an actual camp called Stutthof Natzweiler. Yeah, in the mountains, beautiful.
Is it beautiful there?
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting with the mute brother. I saw it as another language. I mean, he can't speak, but it is providing another language into this Tower of Babel of languages. So it's kind of how I saw it.
Yeah.
What
So bad.
Loves the aerial filming. It was beautiful. Is a comment from a.
That's my favorite. That's my favorite.
Yeah. Why is that your favorite?
Because it just came together so well. We had like, where are you going to find emaciated people nowadays? Apart from like Northern Africa, right? So we just found these, like, they were like 16-year-olds, the skinniest people in Belarus, I think, and told them to get naked, which is another weird thing because they're underage. So I had no, I was going, oh man, I'm gonna get canceled here, because but they have to do this. They have to get naked. And you have to get. So basically, they went off, and in typical Belarus fashion, they drank a bottle of vodka, all of them, for like courage, and then they laid down in their carts, and then with the wind and with the rain and the smoke going, and the wheels kept falling off the stupid cart because it wasn't built really well. It was, but then it just one take, it just came together beautifully. That turn where you reveal the black smoke coming out of the crematory.
Yeah, it was a
It
perfect
was a good
scene.
And I didn't dwell. It showed all the horror, I think, without dwelling on the horror.
Mhm.
Without putting the viewer's face in it.
Well, I thought that was one of the masterpieces of the movie is you sensed everything that was happening,
Yeah,
but you didn't see it, which actually I thought made it
even more so.
worse.
Yeah,
Yeah, because
yeah,
you
yeah,
just knew it. My body was shaking at different parts
yeah,
because I could
yeah.
sense from the music and the photography and the small parsing of words that this whole dynamic was just going
It's
on.
not hard to affect with, with the horrors of it, with the actual actions and deaths and terror of it. And so it's not hard. It's like, I don't know, it's like Diane Arbus. How good of a photographer was she? Really?
Mhm.
She just filmed freaks, and they were interesting to look at. But that's about it.
Well,
Right?
she used lighting though, I think, and that's one of the things that you did was use lighting to help create an emotion.
Yeah, well, she filmed them like beautiful people. That's
Right.
one of the interesting things. Yeah.
So it did. This has been fabulous. And what would you, was there any, I know, I have one question and then I will ask you a last question. You mentioned when we talked before that the movie is coming to the United States. When can we expect to see it? Will it be?
I have no idea. It's like first quarter, I think, of next year.
Uh-huh. And it'll
And
be,
it'll play like, it won't play like many, it won't play like 40 theaters. Unless it becomes popular, then they'll expand.
do you think it'll start like in the artsy theaters?
Yeah. It'll play like in one place in probably like a couple of theaters in New York, a couple in LA, and so on, Chicago, Cleveland, Dallas. I think
Is
about
it-
40 screens.
Is it in the theaters around the world?
It's already done. Yeah, it was in 50 countries.
So we're the last one.
In the theaters, I have like a whole shelf of awards and statuettes from all over the world.
Congratulations. That's fabulous.
Yeah.
So
It's very, very well received.
that's good. It should have been. I'm glad to hear that. Oh, wait, I have one question. It says, oh, nope. Oh, yeah,
Well, I see it looked like a very big cast.
right. Was it a big cast?
Well, what do you mean big cast? Because including extras? Yeah,
It was
it was a lot. Yeah, a lot of people to dress.
a lot of
Mhm.
people to dress. And Joan
Yeah,
asked,
and to fact that, and then Joan asked, read it. Go ahead.
so the prisoners were not as starved looking as people were seen in other Holocaust movies, almost skeleton-like. Was it because they had not been in this situation long?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. They didn't get them. They didn't lose muscle mass yet. Which they would very soon. In the accounts, they were still starved. Matter of fact, it was harder to be starved here than later because you're used to eating here. They just pluck you out of from Marseille or from Greece or something like that, or Italy.
Italy.
Yeah, and but suddenly you're thrust in these circumstances. Yeah, and they bummed around too. That's why their clothes were kind of worn. So yeah.
Anything you'd like to leave the audience with? Last thought?
No, I think the more people you tell about this film, I think the better. The more people will not because it's not for my glory, but just I think that it gave me like a real purpose for with my art is to just, and I'm not done with the Holocaust yet. There's still a bunch in me. So hopefully I'll find good material and do it soon.
That would be wonderful because it would be great to see something. Thank you very much. I really appreciate talking.
Thank you.
Sharing.
Thank you.
Really, both of you, this is wonderful. Vadim, I'm looking forward to whatever you work on next because it's really what
Thank
a
you.
masterful film, and I loved hearing what you had to say about even just the authenticity of the cold weather and the atmosphere. And, there was such attention to detail that created the viewer's experience. And it was a very powerful experience. And again, as we talked about the ending, so powerful, so like,
Thank you.
I don't think there's a dry tear because of when he started rattling off all the names. Oh my heart, it sunk. It was so
And
beautiful. And I love,
he cried himself because he
yes,
realized the importance of what he did.
yes, yes. And again, that tribute to those folks that were murdered and taken from us, and have him kind of create that remembrance is incredible. And just really, I mean, on so many levels, and we could talk
It's
forever
really
about it.
actually a word I've never heard used in this context. Remembrance. It's perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is a remembrance, right? It's a
Yeah,
monument, it's a
exactly.
remembrance. So, really,
Exactly.
congratulations. We all wish you tremendous success, not only with
Thank
this
you.
film, but with all the work that you do. It's
Thank you
really,
so much. And
quite,
thank you
quite,
for attending. Thank you for showing it. And
ah,
thank you for sticking around,
oh,
Uh,
of course, I wouldn't have missed it.
thanks.
And
Yep.
Beverly, thank you once again for being a moderator. We look forward to future opportunities to have you back. Really,
Thank you.
it's really been wonderful. And I want to thank the audience for being part of our Jewish Film Festival of Fairfield County. Again, if anyone you
Yes.
know would like to see the film, it's still available, stanfordjcc.org. If you haven't seen it yet, this is like a must see. You just must see it. That's all I can say. The Center for Arts and
Best Holocaust film ever.
ever. I mean, it really, and also because,
It's
especially
true.
as a Jewish
Hmm.
film festival, we preview hundreds of films year after year after year, and there's often a lot of Holocaust films. But
Yeah,
this was
sure.
different. This was different. It had a completely different feel. I mean, and I loved what you talked about you didn't have to show everything for the audience, the viewer to feel creeped out, to feel scared, to feel all the emotions and know what horror was happening there. It just was such a different take on a Holocaust film.
Son of Saul did a similar thing. Like but they were right in the ovens and the
Right.
gas chambers. They were filming, but they did like very subjective. Remember, like you saw the back of the guy's head and the
Yeah.
whole thing
Ugh.
as he was traveling through there. So it was the same thing, but I think they cheesed out a little bit with the sounds, the crazy echoes and all that.
Right.
They didn't need to do that either.
Right. Well, this was just so well done on so many levels. So really,
Thank you.
thank you. Just
Thanks.
want to
I'm
let
very
everybody.
proud of it, as you can
I'm
tell.
glad that you are. You
Yeah,
should be.
You
You
should
should
yeah,
be.
be. You should be.
yeah.
You should be. It's very accomplished. The Center for Arts and Culture at the Stanford JCC offers exceptional programming throughout the year. So whether it's film or book and author conversations, or our Manger Gallery at the J, or our art and wine receptions, our book clubs, classes, volunteer opportunities, there's so much going on at the JCC. We hope that you're able to join us for other endeavors. Please know that not after Thanksgiving, on the 29th of November, we have a JCC book and author conversation with the author Weena Day Randall, author of The Last Rose of Shanghai. It'll take place also via Zoom at 7 p.m. And you can register on our website, stanfordjcc.org. And also wanted to let you know that we do have a festival encore coming up. That will be at the end of January. The film is called Reckonings. It's about the reparations and the process of getting those reparations, and it's in commemoration of Holocaust Remembrance Day. So stay tuned for that. And again, thank you so much, Vadim. Thank you so much, Beverly, and our
Thank you, guys.
audience. Thank you for joining us for the 21st season of the Jewish Film Festival of Fairfield County. Wishing everybody a wonderful rest of the evening and happy Thanksgiving. Thank you all. Good night.
Good night.